Roman Reigns is back, and he gave everybody on Monday the best possible news, the news that a lot of us, I think, expected. Once that it was announced in advance he was coming back, and they were building it up like such a big deal. There's no way they would have been building that up for anything but a positive announcement. And the positive announcement is that he is officially in remission from leukemia. 4 months after sharing his diagnosis with the world, he is back in remission. Now, this does not mean that he's cured. It does not mean that it can't come back. This was his second round with the disease. Hopefully there is not a third. But, when it comes back like that, the chances of it coming back again are always there. They're always in the back of your mind. You're always sort of waiting for the other shoe to fall. It's not the best feeling in the world. So I think people need to kind of keep perspective on that. But he looked good. He got the biggest ovation of his career. I think it's safe to say. His mother was there in the front row. The Rock's mother was there. The Rock's mother shows up to more WWE shows than The Rock. They may as well give her a roster spot at this point. Make her a GM for one of the shows. But it was a great way to open the show on Monday night. He'll be the biggest babyface now for a while at least on Monday Night Raw. I don't think it's going to last forever. Certainly not if they book him the way they did before and they really start forcing him upon people again. I think it'll benefit him, frankly, not to be the focal point, the number one focal point of the show for a little while. But for now, the Boo Birds are drowned out, and I'm sure Vince McMahon could not be happier. He's got his top guy back healthy, right? He came back, he got a hero's welcome. And more importantly, he has another big name back on the active roster at a time when they have had to deal with a slew of injuries. And now they have a big name back in the fold that they can, immediately, if they want to, insert back into major storylines. Now, reportedly, it was Roman's choice to return now. As far as the question of why now, why not wait, this was his choice. He contacted Vince McMahon. He was the first person in WWE that he contacted to let him know, I'm in remission, I'm ready to come back. And of course, once he told Vince that, Vince was like, well, all right, pal. And, the plans were put in motion for Roman Reigns to make his big comeback. And to the few knuckle draggers still out there who still insisted to me, that because he, achieved remission in less than 4 months, well, this can't possibly be real. The whole thing must be a work. If you're calling Roman Reigns a liar, then you're calling me a liar too. Because I've had a family member achieve remission in forget 4 months, in the first 4 weeks of treatment. And that was from acute leukemia, not chronic. We don't know what kind of leukemia he has, nor is it any of our business if he chooses not to share that. But I can't tell you how many times I heard that online, whether it was directed at me or I just saw it on my timeline. Well, it can't be real and here's why. And they're giving timelines like they've got their medical degree. Oh, he should share what type of disease. He doesn't have to prove anything to anybody. He doesn't. The onus is not on him to prove to people that he's sick. This is not a court case. The burden of proof does not fall on his shoulders. He's not defending himself against some charges. I was amazed by all of the doogie fucking Housers on Twitter with their online medical degrees telling me what is and isn't possible. If I want to learn more about brain damage, I'll be sure to consult you. For leukemia, leave it to the doctors and the people who have actually dealt with this before. I watched that interview he gave on Good Morning America. He sat down with Robin Roberts and, the next morning, and he's talking about his mom and how it affected his whole family, how the news and everything just sort of affected all of them. And you've got people who want to make a spectacle of themselves on social media. And it's not a matter of what is and isn't possible. That's not the debate here. Well, isn't it possible that it could be? We're not talking about what is and isn't possible. It's that these people believe it to be true. And that's what's scary about it. A lot of people really exposed themselves the last 2 weeks. And that's really the last time I'm even going to address this. I've said my piece, and I'm not wasting another breath on these people. Roman came back out later in the show. He got physical. He made the save with Seth Rollins for Dean Ambrose when Dean was being ganged up on by Lashley, Corbin, McIntyre, and Elias. We got a couple of Superman punches. He had a spear. No Shield pose, no Shield reunion. It was actually kind of bizarre the way they did this. Because they come out, right? They make the save for Dean Ambrose. Dean's over in the corner. He's laid out. They come out to make the save, and then they just left the ring and walked off and left Ambrose all by himself laying in the ring. So clearly it was a tease for a Shield reunion. They didn't want to give it away on the first night. And we might get that reunion. We might get that Shield pose, that Shield fist bump as soon as tomorrow night on Raw. Local advertising for Fastlane is out. That's coming up on pay-per-view a week from today. And the advertising has a handicap match listed with Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins due to take on Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley, and Baron Corbin. Dean Ambrose, you have to think, is going to be added to that match. I mean, after what they did on Monday, he has to be. They could add Elias on the heel side, since he was part of that beatdown on Ambrose. If they do, they could have Braun Strowman then maybe team up with the Shield, and instead of it being a handicap match or a 6-man tag, maybe it turns into an 8-man tag. You know, all these guys have been involved with one another, so it's hard for me to think, well, believe me, I'm over the whole Braun Strowman versus Baron Corbin and the whole heel trio deal. But there's no other role for Strowman on the show unless you sort of throw him in there and turn it into a big 8-man tag. So I think that's also a distinct possibility for the show. And again, the more people in the match, the less ring time that is required of Roman Reigns. I don't know where he's at physically in terms of ring shape or how much they want him doing. So him being in a 6-man tag or an 8-man tag in his first match back makes a lot of sense. Instead of throwing him in there in a singles match, it makes sense to kind of ease him back into things by putting him in some kind of a tag team situation. So that does make sense. As far as what role Roman might play at WrestleMania this year, that's still up in the air. Obviously, if he wrestles at Fastlane, there is zero chance that he isn't wrestling at WrestleMania. If he's back on the pay-per-view next weekend and he's in a match, he will be at WrestleMania in some form or fashion physically in the ring. I just don't see how there's a chance of it being any other way. And I know that Dean Ambrose is suddenly a babyface again, and you know, it looks like there might be a little Shield reunion again. But boy, would it get him some good heel heat if he, let's say, reunited with his buddies on Raw tomorrow night. They set up the match for Fastlane, and then at the pay-per-view, he turns on the Shield. Cost them the match. And then it was Roman Reigns one-on-one with Dean Ambrose at WrestleMania. That'd be a hell of a better spot for Dean than it would have been against Nia Jax. Thankfully, we haven't heard anything more about that in about a month. I think that idea went the way of the dodo a while back. But this could be like that little fake out. The way I look at it, that little fake out that we got with Stone Cold back in 2001 when the old Stone Cold came back. And we all thought he was back on Team WWF. He was going to lead the charge with Team WWF into battle against the Alliance. But then what happened at the Invasion pay-per-view? 6 days later, he turned on them. He turned on WWE, and he helped the Alliance win. And then he led the whole Alliance faction, and there's a lot of different reasons why that thing failed. That's one of many. I don't think when people thought about that invasion, they thought, you know what I really think that they should do? I think that they should take a WWF guy and have him lead the invading charge. But that's what they did. And hey, we got a lot of entertaining television, I will say, with heel Stone Cold and Kurt Angle and banjos and cowboy hats and badges and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I see this as maybe being a similar type of situation where Ambrose, it looks like he's a babyface again, but maybe he really isn't. Maybe at Fastlane, he's even more enraged now because now Roman is back and the focus is all on Roman. And so he can cost them the match, and that could be the WrestleMania match there. It's just, I don't know if that's the plan or not. I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking as far as Ambrose. I don't know what his status is, if he's still leaving, if he's considering staying. I don't know. I think that's all up in the air right now. But I would rather they do something like that than just inserting Roman into the Rollins and Lesnar match, which I think is also a possibility. Roman Reigns never lost the Universal Championship. He had to give it up. He was never beaten for it. I mean, it took, 2 years probably for Finn Balor to even get a crack at it, and he also vacated the title. I don't think we're going to have to wait 2 years to see Roman Reigns competing for the championship again. But don't think that there isn't at least the possibility that that could happen. And they could turn that into a triple threat match. And I see Seth Rollins has been dealing with a back injury. He should be good to go for WrestleMania. He should be good to go for Fastlane. But if there's any doubts about his physical state, and I'm just saying, there's always the possibility that Roman could be inserted into the championship match at WrestleMania. And I don't like that idea. I think that's way too soon. I think you've got a lot of goodwill built up with this guy, and to just shove him right back in there, you're going to kill a lot of that goodwill, I think, that you have been gifted by these horrible circumstances. But they say turn a negative into a positive. They have been gifted this reaction. This situation here where Roman is now coming out to loud cheers wherever he goes. I don't know why you would do anything to jeopardize that. Like there was one person who emailed me this week, Manj, in England. He's a listener of the podcast, and he sent a mailbag question into me this week saying, WrestleMania 31, Seth Rollins denied Roman Reigns from winning the WWE title against Brock Lesnar by cashing in Money in the Bank. WrestleMania 35, Roman, would he cost Seth Rollins the championship against Brock Lesnar like Seth did to him? If this was any other time, I would say do it. Pull the trigger. Turn him heel. Absolutely. But now? Absolutely not. You can't do that now. They finally got what they always wanted. Now, I don't know how long it's going to last for. I don't know how long this honeymoon period with him is going to last. But Roman is the biggest babyface in the company now. Maybe outside of Kofi. But, he's a bigger star than Kofi is. He's their top babyface. This is Vince McMahon's wet dream. Now they're supposed to turn him heel? There's no way. But it would make sense. It would absolutely make sense. Or I should say they can make sense of it very easily. If they wanted to have Roman do to Seth what Seth did to him. And Roman is just obsessed with getting the championship back. He wants to be the one, like he did at SummerSlam, to slay the beast. And I've done it before. You've never done it. It's got to be me. I never lost my title. The only thing that kept me motivated the entire time was, winning back the championship. Of course, they already fucked that storyline up. He came out and said that this is not about championships. I guess you can't do that. But yeah, you could certainly come up with a storyline that, an explanation for why Roman would do something like that. And boy, that would make for a hell of a memorable moment at WrestleMania. But to throw all of that goodwill away that's been built up with this guy, why would they do that? There's no reason for them to do that right now.